difficulties. Really sorry about that, guys, but unfortunately this is live. This is what happens. So we are here at Natal Powerboats. As you can see, a fantastic establishment, really professional setup and outfit here. A lot of really good looking hardware in the back here, from boats, jet skis, inflatables. They've got your whole offshore experience as well as dams covered here under one roof at Natal Powerboats. And with us we've got Ruli, one of the partners at Natal Powerboats. Ruli, thanks so much for having us, man.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kirk. Thanks, Byron. Thanks for having me here as well. Just to give you a little bit of a history about Natal Powerboats. We've been around since 1999. Nick and myself had started the business. We are in a new premises. It's 5,000 squares. We've got more than 120 boats available, and jet skis, of course, and inflatables that you can choose from. If there's anything that you're looking for, whether it's water skiing, deep sea, please come and see us and we'll gladly assist you and we'll put you on the water. Not just that, we've got water skiing equipment that we can show you, fish finders, and of course spares and everything. But thanks a lot. Thanks, Kirk. Great initiative. This Go Fish is going to go to places. Thanks a lot for getting us involved.
No, thanks, Ruli, and yeah, to you and Nick, really appreciate it. Byron, I think you've had some good experiences with the guys from Natal Powerboats. They've been in the industry for a very long time. Always had a good name.
Yeah, I think, I've been to quite a lot of different setups, and this is probably, in Durban, it is no doubt the biggest setup and the most professional. Job card done, sorted, you know what's going to be done, and when you pick up your boat, everything's sorted out. And then also, just from a spares and accessories point of view, it's a one-stop shop. You can come in if you need a bilge pump, if you need some fittings, stainless steel fittings, whatever you need, you can get it here and you get it immediately. So you can do those maintenance days on your boats without having to run around to 5 different places. Yeah, so yeah, it is a good setup. Come down, have a look around here. It's worth a couple of hours.
So Brendan's in the back just trying to sort out some technical difficulties there that he's having on his side, but he's managed to sort everything out for us here, so he'll be joining us shortly. We're going to be covering a little bit about St. Lucia in this episode. We've just come from a trip there with the guys from Racetech and a couple of their supporters and the boys that came from Joburg and Pretoria and Durban, and that a great time was had by all up there. We're also going to be going into some Kielbeck. You've literally just come off the water like half an hour ago.
Guys, you actually cut my time there. We just started bending, and I had to tell the guys we're packing up to come back. We've got a live stream. Just to say, Stompy wasn't very happy, and Stompy's not the smallest oak that you'll see just now. He popped
like
for
tiny.
He popped for Free State. So luckily he caught the fish, so he was happy because he could smuts his latte. Yeah, so anyway, we made it back.
Okay. Yeah, so we're going to be covering some back. We're going to be chatting about St. Lucia. We're going to be going into, now that the borders have opened as well, we're going to be chatting about some trips that we're doing through Go Fish to Lazarus Banks and Barren Islands and that. Because next week, Thursday, we've got a really special one where we're going to be hopefully live streaming from a yacht in Durban Harbour, which will be really exciting.
And Kevin and Ali aren't invited.
Yeah.
Kev's voice won't be back by then.
I came back from fishing. Come on.
Do you know this actually, that whole half hour, that was like talking to Kevin for half an hour. That's what he sounds like, worse.
We're all on the back of quite a big weekend out of St. Lucia, and Kevin and myself enjoyed the after fishing festivities a little bit too much.
Yeah, and I saw some of the clips there, and they were vying for the hat. Where it was between this one on some green robots there, and I don't know what Slayer was drinking, but I saw he was dancing with someone. But don't worry, Mrs. Tate, it wasn't a female, so you got nothing to worry about. I don't know what they were doing, but they were, I don't know, horizontal on a couch at some point. But anyway, goes on tour, stays on tour. Don't worry, Kev. I've got the video, but don't worry.
So Kev unfortunately lost his voice, hence the reason he's not here tonight. And Alistair France, our jet ski extraordinaire and kingfish machine from St. Lucia, he nearly missed his wife's birthday today.
Well, I think he was. Do you know what happened with Alistair? I think, hope his wife's not watching. He went fishing this morning, and one of his mates reminded him on live stream that it was his wife's birthday.
So, yeah, needless to say, he's out having dinner at the moment.
Probably for a couple of weeks.
Smush up to his wife there. So good luck on that one, Ali. There's no bait that we can suggest for that one, but just hard graft to get back in the good books there. But yeah, guys, St. Lucia this weekend, I think for all of us, you know, we had Kev, Alistair, myself, Brendan up there. Unfortunately, Byron couldn't make it. And also just due to weather, the weather wasn't really playing ball for the amount of time it could come through.
Yeah, I must say I had a lot of FOMO though, I must be honest, because, you know, it's always, when you've got 30 or 40 guys fishing, and it doesn't matter if there's few fish around, there's still always lots of pictures. So it always looks like everyone's hammering the fish. So yeah, I must say I did have a lot of FOMO, but yeah, I just think it was great. It was a great initiative, I think, and I think the boys who came on the weekend, I think, learnt a lot. I think the amount of info that was shared, you know, was exceptional. I think if you go back to Thursday night's wrap-up last week, which was done with Oki, not Langa.
Yeah, sorry, Oki.
Not Langa.
Apologies,
I mean,
but...
Oki, I would have actually knocked him, and you're actually big enough to knock him. I'm a small guy, you know. But you know, I think there was some real gems in. I think it was a big up to Oki just for sharing those.
Definitely.
You know, like I said, we think we fish light. You know, we're saying, oh, number 4, number 5. You know, he's fishing like 3 and sometimes 2 and wire, you know, and getting the bite and you know, so I think there was really some gems in there, and I think we'll show some of the couple of things. I think Kirk's got some stuff to show and run through, you know, that he shared on that. So go back and watch that as well, because you know, I was making notes there. You know, no one knows everything. You learn, and that's the great thing about the sport is you learn every day.
Yeah.
And I'll show you something later on as well, just with around a copper and what I sort of learnt on the day.
There are almost as many tips that weekend as we were carrying cokes.
Please don't mention that word again.
Cream soda and coke.
Yeah. But guys, yeah, you know, I think one of the things I've always gone up to St. Lucia at Vidal and St. Lucia area, and I've always had success with fish, catching fish up there. This weekend we toiled, we struggled, and it was partly because like we were saying earlier, and probably for the third time now, that north-south current was coming past Vidal, and the water was green. It was cold. For all the oaks that are up there, they'll know what I'm talking about. And obviously, boys, we need excuses because we caught absolutely bugger all. So we're going to bend on this one. But it was green. It was cold. And in the actual bay of St. Lucia itself and Mapelan, because that bay ducks in like this, the current was going past that bay and actually reversing. So it was going further out to sea, it was going north-south, and it was reversing in that actual bay. And it just turned those fish completely off. We got 1 or 2 tuna.
Not for Brad Douglas.
Yeah, but Brad was fishing. I mean, a couple of the guys that were fishing further north of Vidal and north of Vidal, and sort of those barges there off Vidal, they picked up 1 or 2 fish, and then, you know, like sort of one every 5th boat was getting fish, and, you know, like, but it was bits and bobs, and obviously it's not the right season to be fishing there. It's a change of the season. We're going into it now. October, November is when you really want to be at Vidal. But I mean, BK, it was tough fishing. I know you weren't there, but you know a bit about that area.
Yeah, I mean, I think also, you know, you want that current to be coming in and get that upwelling going. You know, upwelling, you know, brings the nutrients up, and then the bait fish come, and then the pelagics come, and, you know, just start switching on. You know, you need decent water. And yeah, and the guys, and I think that's also why, you know, the guys fish particularly light in certain of those areas as well. And you are fishing shallow and that, so the fish are affected quite quickly by the conditions. You know, so you need good conditions there, and then the fish can really turn on there. But yeah, so it was hard graft, but I think the guys got, from what I saw, it looked like the guys were hammering the fish, and I was like, I was about to hook up and leave and drive up, you know, and that's what happens when you've got 30 or 40 guys on the water. But yeah, I still think it was a great weekend, and I think I saw the feedback on the WhatsApp group. You know, Ali took the guys drop shotting and bucktailing, and they got on the boat, you know, took like a little mini clinic, and I mean the guys got about 36 or 38 fish, you know, and on light tackle, you know, that's what it's about. That's and also just letting the guys, you know, get the technique. It's small bits of technique, that little tricks that you learn on the retrieve, on the action of the rod, you know, all those sort of things that a guy like Alistair, who's doing it every weekend, because we're fortunate enough to be able to fish on the coast. You know, it allows the guys to be able to learn those techniques, and then obviously share them with friends and that. So I think that's what made the weekend so successful, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, and again, you know, to Oki, what he showed, and I think you'll go through it now just in some of, you know, how he fishes for snook and that sort of thing. You know, he's a master at that. So, yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
I think, you know, and Brendan, I mean, we fished off the kayaks there around that point. I'd never fished Mapelan before, but a lot of those fish, from what Oki was saying, like the guys are fishing very shallow there for their kuda, and that 16 meters on the point. You've got that crayfish point, which is just down the coast to the south. That was also sort of 12 to 16 meters. They fish at 25 meter ledge. For me, predominantly, off Vidal, we have always stuck to 18 to 25 meters. That's always been a really successful depth for us. And it seems kind of the same down there, a little bit shallower. And then you've got that Jolly Rubino. You went down to the Jolly Rubino, eh? On Oki's boat.
Didn't go.
Oh, didn't you go? Okay. We saw some really amazing footage of that Jolly Rubino from the guys that were filming it. I've never been down there. It's always been a dream. Unfortunately, on the day that we were supposed to go, that west was coming through and we weren't able to get down there. But
I called it slow Tate. What got in the way? He got on the
yeah, 100%. Yeah, Kev got in the way there, changed the plans, but anyway, you know, that Jolly Rubino wreck. A lot of the guys say that a large part of it has been washed away over the years, but there's still a significant part of that wreck that's still sticking out. Yeah. And if you're going to St. Lucia and you're launching out of Mapelan, it is definitely well worth a visit to that wreck.
But you know what I think I definitely picked up is we didn't have fish finders, and it's so important. I know we've had articles.
You didn't have fish finders.
Oh, yeah. Did you have one?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for sharing that with me. You didn't have a fish but I didn't have a finder. I didn't have a finder, and you disappeared for a while. But I know we've had articles with Adam Waits about not needing a fish finder and that's all well and good if you're in your local spots. If you're in your local spots and you know where your bait is and you know where reef is, but if you're in a place like Mapelan, you're fishing blind and you don't even know landmarks. You need a finder.
Definitely,
And I think that was,
guys,
very
I think
important.
that the finder side just gives you that comfort that you
not fishing in the bush.
Yeah, that you're not in the bush, and also that if there's something there or not there. I mean, you can be the greatest angler. I actually said it tonight, you know, we anchored the first time in the bush. I said, guys, if you're not on the fish, you can be the greatest angler. You can't catch a fish if you're not on the fish.
That's exactly it. There were no fish around us.
And even today, I mean, we were running to the bait mark, and again, you know, and I always leave the sounder on, traveling, you know, half a K from the bait mark, there's the upshowing, and we loaded up with mackerel. And the guys were on the bait spot there. I saw them on our way there. We were already running to the fishing spot, and they were still on the bait spot, trying to catch bait. Yeah. And we had 30 mackerel already.
Found them,
You know?
And you guys fit finders here, really?
Yes, that's right. We do.
So yeah, that's a crucial. I won't go fishing if I don't have a GPS and a fish finder. Honestly,
just talk us through a bit what the guys can do in terms of coming down to their finders fitted.
And I think also just on that point that Brendan's brought up as well. Correct installation of a transducer.
It's essential.
Yeah, I mean that's something that a lot of guys get wrong, right? Yeah.
I think it's very important to know about a fish finder because there's a lot in the market, a lot of good products. It's essential that the unit itself, if you look at the specifications, the traditional has got a specific wattage. Then you've got side view if you are into bass fishing, down view. Chirp is a different wattage to what's traditional. I don't want to complicate it, gets quite complicated, but it's very important that you marry the transducer with the unit. You'll always see a cheap fish finder, but there's something just not right. You've got to make sure that the transducer can take the same power and vice versa. And of course, setting is essential. The transom mounts are probably the better ones, but you do get in-hull and through-hull transducers. But if we get another chance to explain further, all I can tell you is that your settings, your gain, and your range is essential. There are very good videos out there on YouTube, but it's essential you've got everything in place, and then you can really. I
think there's a short clip. I don't know if we've got it on tonight, but actually from tonight's fishing,
we do.
Just around that and just what I'm looking at and how I've set my sounder up. I've got a sounder split screen and I've got my GPS. So I've got 2 7-inches. So here we were running, and you can see there now on the right hand side is top to bottom from 0 to 20 meters. I don't know if you want to pause there.
Sorry, yeah, let me just go back and
Let's
just pause
just go
it
back
there,
so you can see there the mackerel. We've just smashed him. Now this was literally probably about 500 to half a k, probably to 400 meters away from the actual bait spot. So on the right hand side.
Sorry, just go back to what were you leaving the bait spot now and going to the
so
fish,
I
or
was
were you
traveling
just
to the
looking
bait.
for?
No, I was traveling to the bait spot.
Okay.
So there's a clip after this. I'm not sure if it's there, but at 40 k's an hour, I can still read the bottom.
Yeah.
So I can read the bottom, and 2 release points. It's a transom mount. It's a transom mount, stock standard 600 watt transducer, and nothing special about it. But it's set up to the unit and it works. And so we were 500 meters away, and I could see that midwater showing. So if you look on the right-hand side is top to bottom, from 0 down to 30. Okay, so in 20 meters of water there, you can see 0 to 20, and you can see at the 5 meter to 10 meter, there's the showing coming through there, and that's the mackerel. On the left-hand side is my bottom zoom. So that's from 14.5 meters to 20 meters. So that's showing me basically 5 meters above the bottom. 20, 19, 18, 17, 16. So you can see that.
Your water column.
So that's zooming in at the bottom.
Okay.
If I want to see what's happening down there, and that's how I'll operate even when I'm bottom fishing as well. I'll be zoomed in like that, so I can see keelback, bottom showing, if the fish is sitting tight on the bottom, and it's obviously exploding it as well. And you're looking for those individual red bars in them. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a showing tonight. There wasn't a great keelback showing, even though we got one. So that's what happened. And I mean, there we stopped. I did a turn. I looped around. I went back. I zoomed right in on my GPS. I went back up the line where I saw the showing. There, the showing started at 5 meters, and we went down. And you can see there, we just loaded up with mackerel. We had 30 mackerel in like 3 downs. So, and that's what you want. So that's the importance of that, because that's the make or break. Now we're already on the way to the fishing grounds. The other guys are still catching mozzies and shad and trying to find a mackerel. So it's vitally important that that is set up. It's like a deal breaker at the end of the day if you're serious about catching fish.
Definitely. We're going to be doing a live wrap up from Lawrence in 2 weeks' time, where we're actually going to just that whole show is going to be chatting about fish finders, how to read them, how to set them up correctly with gain and range, like Ruli was just saying, and what to look for, what bait showings, what sort of when you're looking at the finder, what bait is it that you're seeing on the finder, where different fish sit in the water column, so that you get a better understanding of what you're looking at when you're looking at that finder, because that's 90% of the whole process.
That's what I'm saying. If you're not on the fish, you can't catch them. You can be the greatest angler in the world, but especially bottom fishing. You've got to be in the right place. We anchored tonight. The current swung us. We went on the outside. We had to re-anchor. You've got to re-anchor, because you can see there's no showing under the boat.
But not just bottom fishing. I mean, this weekend was a prime example with Oki. He's a local. He's a fantastic angler. There were just no showings on that finder. We're moving around all over. There were no fish around.
But it's also like, and Mozambique's a prime example for me. I've seen it off like Mullingan Ledge and that, where you're sitting fishing for kudu off Mullingan Ledge and you don't see any showings, but you'll see the odd speck come up, and it's just that little sort of lone couple of like very loosely scattered bait, and you know that's a good area, that you should be putting a bait down there, because the kudu are coming in and out. And,
a lot of the time, especially when you fish like those deeper waters in Mullingan, anywhere on those, when you get into that like 35 meter depth range, you'll generally find those kuta sitting at about 25 meters. So if you're looking on the sounder, what you want to be seeing is you'll see the bottom obviously, and the ledge and structure coming from 40 to 35 or whatever it might be. And then if you look up, there'll be some bait showing at the bottom. But then that's why it's vital that you have that top to bottom on the right-hand side. You can have the zoomed in the bottom, but you want to see the top to bottom. And invariably at about that 25 meter mark, so about 10 meters above the bottom, you're going to see those upside down V's. And if you see those, you know the kudo there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then you just got to get, the trick is to get your bait,
Bait
down.
down,
obviously,
yeah. But guys, we're going to save that the fish finder talk and have a full-on fish finder chat for
Who's
that
gonna do
Lawrence
John?
one. John Minnie will be joining us. So I think we might have Mick Clark also weighing in on a bit there as well. He's a bit of a guru when it comes to that. Like we said, we were up in St. Lucia. Yes, a big thanks to all the chaps that were up there. What a flippin' great time. Thanks, boys. It was a good time for all of us that were up there. And it was great to meet some new faces. But what one of the things, I think just from my side, we've got to say a massive thank you to Aukie Tunison for having us at his place, welcoming us into his home, and just it was a proper education from my side. I know it was for you as Brendan, just listening to how he was chatting about how he fishes for snook and kudo, and that. We're not going to go too in depth into that because we covered that in last week's show. If you didn't catch it, catch last week's live stream show. There's just so much intel from him on how he fishes St. Lucia, but more specifically, how he fishes for snook. It's something that we don't do here down on the coast. We don't fish live bait predominantly for snook. And he has won that snook derby in St. Lucia the last 2 years running that they've had. That's 3 years. Is it 3 years?
I think it was
2 or 3 years. Anyway, he's a snook machine, and he live red eye. Now, I'm going to pick up the live red eye trace there, Cam, if you can just check it out. We're going to give it a quick run over. Like I said, it is in last week's show, but I just want to show something, and I'm going to lead into it. You'll see where I'm going with this. But this is basically his live red eye trace. Now, he is an SA light tackle boat champion, and he fishes a lot of IGFA, so he's got 2 singles there, and he's got that running treble hook there as well. Now, fishes it on a light drag with that duster, and sometimes fishes it without the duster, but he's won on that trace 2 or 3 times with that live red eye, gets them on 16 meters off the point of Mapelan, comes on the inside onto the back line, slow trawling those red eyes, and then he pulls them along the rips and whatnot, trying to find those snook, and he's got those bombers on that exact trace.
Yeah, I mean, and look at, and we were talking about it. It makes perfect sense because a snook he's not a cooter. So a snook, he doesn't have a powerful bite. So I mean, a cooter comes in and just smashes and chops through everything, and it's a mess. Whereas a snook, although he's got sharp teeth, he doesn't have a powerful bite. So he's coming in and he's like chop on the bait, and he's hitting, and then he's turning to swim away. So the treble makes perfect sense in terms of it being free, and he's got a soft mouth. So when he turns, light drag, and he turns, and the treble will set somewhere in the jaw and lock him in if one of the singles don't pin him.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense, and yeah, it's a great trace. And just I've just thought about it right now. Old Rolf was fishing with me early on in the kuta season, and we were fishing with a live mozzie on the top, for kuta with a single hook in it behind the head, and we got a 10-kilo snook. So it makes sense. If you actually go and swim the baits, that was at the station. If you go and swim baits in the back line, shallower, but obviously the red eye, we again said it's a deadly bait, and a lot of people don't try and keep it alive because it doesn't stay alive in the live bait well. But the key is, guys, I mean, even if it's for yellowfin or for kuta, once you actually put him and get him out, he's quite a hardy bait. He actually stays alive.
Like a bonnie, you just got to be quick with him.
Yeah, you've got to be quick with him.
Carefully,
exactly, and handle him quickly. He doesn't like to get pinned in the mouth, so generally you can either pin him. I generally either pin him sideways through the nose if I'm going to trawl him, or behind the head if you're gonna drift with him, because then he can swim more freely. And I know Mark also showed also the bridle, so they can also bridle him if you can get him quickly back in the water. But it's a deadly bait. That and a razor belly are my sort of go-to baits. If you can get those baits out live, they will deliver for you. There's no doubt about it.
So just something we want to run through, and I've been given permission by Aukie to show this clip of his garage. And I think it's something that we as anglers all need to aspire to.
You're going to make us jealous.
I'm telling you. Well, listen, I was begging him to put my mattress in this garage just so I could door stay up for the weekend, because this is definitely what dreams are made of. Bugger the shoe cupboards for the aunties. I think you're probably going to have to get a shoe cupboard for your missus if this is what you want. This is what you want your garage to look like.
I think Kevin had been telling him how many reels of his have gone missing to you, so that's why I didn't want you to sleep in it.
So this is Ali just entering the garage. I'm just gonna. I mean, when you
This is like Ali in a strip club.
yeah, when you see the oak got a rail for his gaffs, and he's got 5 or 6 of them, then you know we're walking into something serious here. But just have a look at this.
See how
as
he's
he
rubbing,
walks
he's
through.
rubbing his hands.
Yeah. When a Richards Bay oak starts rubbing his hands, but then you know stuff's going to go missing.
That's why they
He's
don't
making a mental list. He's making a mental list. Okay, we're coming back.
Ellie's just trying to get bail at the moment.
Yeah, Ox, you better just have a look and do a little bit
I
of a
hope
recon
you
there.
don't count afterwards.
But look at this. I mean, that is unbelievable.
Amazing, eh?
And that's the tame wall. We're coming to the good stuff now.
Oh, that's just the first one.
Yeah. But you know, it was really such a pleasure to fish with Oki and just hear the stories of him telling him about his family. His whole family's into fishing. They're all SA anglers. His sons, his wife, and himself. And I mean, he's a grafter. You can check. The oak is just. He works for his fish. He tries to work out what's going on, thinks about it, and it's so lucky and refreshing to meet a guy that is just free of his information, just to share with anyone, you know.
I know. I mean,
That guy works the boat.
I can only say one thing is that, I mean, especially if you're angling competitively, 90% of the win is in the prep.
Yeah.
I can be honest with you. Your tackle, your setups, your prep, your bait, all of that things. You know, those comps when you go. I mean, I've spoken about the race tech comp often. You know, you start 3 months before that comp, setting yourself up, your tackle, your bait, your intel, everything. You know, that's what it's about, and that's why if someone's successful, you can go and see why they're successful. You go look at their tackle. So first thing you look at is go look at their tackle.
If you want to see a successful angler,
Don't
go to Kirk's garage.
Let me tell you, I'm just thinking about this as Byron's saying this, and I'm just going, yes, but I'm glad I chose my Barbie day to be the day when I went on the boat with Oki, because that looks busy. But he was prepped. I knew that could be my Barbie day because Oki was prepped. I could just park there in the corner there, catch a wink every now and then, and
Who would
Ox
like
was
us to show
running
Kirk's,
around.
Who would
that
like us
thing.
to show Kirk's tackle room
Please.
next week?
Yeah. That thing's
Give him a week to tidy it up.
A bird's nest of nut. But yeah, look, I mean, just finishing off on St. Lucia. St. Lucia, it's in a bit of a sad. It's a beautiful town. The people are lovely, and like we were saying earlier with the Zululand, you know, just the people from Zululand, the fishermen. They've got some brilliant anglers from Zululand. You were chatting about your Cape Vidal days and John Chubb and that.
I mean, you know, look, we know the Zululand boys only work like 3 months of the year. It's like farming, you know, they plant and harvest.
Yeah.
But they got 3 months there. I remember that's what I was saying. John Chubb, you know, he would go up for about 3 months to Vidal, set up the whole house there. I mean, and if you're lucky enough to crack the nod for a weekend or even a week, it was an experience of note. And I think, you know, just talking about St. Lucia, I mean, in fact, it was probably one of the first destinations I went away with my wife's parents. We weren't obviously married at the time, and I think I've told the story before, but I think, you know, I remember Mary's mom casting at the river mouth, and she would throw like Granny Dawn would throw like about 15, 20 meters, and all the oaks were going with a big heave-ho, and she was just going tight every like 2 minutes with a grunter like this. And she had like 5 grunter in about half an hour for breakfast. And I remember going back and filleting, and we had fresh grunter on the scottle for breakfast, and then driving down the beach. You know, I think that's obviously what's also, you know, hurt St. Lucia a lot. The greatest part there was being able to get on the beach, you know, and drive on the beach, and also at Vidal as well, you know. Unfortunately, you know, and I still believe it's things that should still be considered. You know, there's areas in Mozambique where you can buy permits and you can drive on the beach. You know, and if it's everything in moderation. You know, whether it's fishing within quotas, MPAs, driving on the beach. I mean, guys, it's about everything in moderation. You know, and I honestly believe it's something that should be considered. I think we're in a forward-thinking world. I mean, you can track people, you can have GPS tracking on, you can see where people have been, you can see what speeds they're driving at. You know, these things are easily monitored and easily controlled, and it's also an income generating stream as well. I mean, we go to Mozambique, we spend 1,000 rand so that we can drive on the beach, right? But we pay it willingly, and that money can go back into those coffers, you know, so to look after the place. So I honestly believe, you know, we've got to be dynamic in the way that we look to manage our environment, you know, and those sort of things will help to build those towns up. You know, like you said, there's great people there, and people are trying to eke out a living there, and it's very challenging when things are so limited. You know, there's definitely some middle ground that needs to be sought there that benefits everyone.
Yeah. Just on the driving on the beach point, I've got to tell a story quickly about a family friend, a Zululand farmer, cane farmer. Old Big Malcolm. Yeah, no, shame. Unfortunately, he's passed. But a very, very naughty bugger. We were talking about old Craig earlier. Same, cut from the same cloth. Very naughty. He was, so it was either St. Lucia, or I think it was St. Lucia, though, St. Lucia Mapelan area. Malcolm would, every fishing trip, take, or, you know, nearly every fishing trip would take a mannequin with him. And he dolled this mannequin up properly with beautiful mannequin, a female one, got the boobs, everything's in the right area. He put hair on all the right spots that he needed to put hair on. And he would, every morning, he would take this mannequin out and he would prop her on the sand dune there, and he'd park her off there in her beach chair with the little blouse that was hanging open like this, and umbrella and a cooler box, laid the whole thing out there. And he reckons,
obviously a little way from everyone.
Yeah, but the oaks would come past, drive past. He reckons the amount of oaks that used to pull into the shore break while checking his auntie out.
The auntie that wasn't an auntie.
Yeah. But that's just the beauty of that Zululand human, and what we were touching on there with regards to the estuary of St. Lucia and the concern over that estuary currently is the fact that estuary is closed. I saw it coming up in a conversation last night on one of the fishing groups, and the guys chatting about it. That used to be a mecca for fishing, like Baron was saying. Guys would come over from all over the country for that grunter run specifically, and they would get all species in there. We know how important estuaries are to our systems, not only the oceans, but estuaries in general for breeding and what happens in them. But I mean, that St. Lucia estuary alone has over 1,000 crocs and over 1,000 hippos in it, and at one stage was the most concentrated estuary, I think definitely in Africa, if not the world, that had crocs and hippos in it. And currently, it's so silted up, Brendan. I mean, we were there at very, very shallow, in places like there was mud sticking out, and I think the deepest parts were like a meter.
Yeah, meter and a half.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing is that place is it's a beautiful place as it is. And, you know, and without the ocean flowing in there in its natural sort of state, and you can just like you say, it's just sad that it's not back where it should be. I mean, what did the guy say? There's 936 bird species.
536,
bird species in South Africa.
Yeah.
And you can find 520 or 30 of them.
Yeah.
2/3 of bird species can be found in the solution.
Not to belabor the point, but I mean, you know, the guys say no, mustn't human intervention shouldn't take place, shouldn't open it up, you know, force it open. And that, I mean, I know there's been some discussion, but the reality is the reason why it is like that is
because of human. Yeah, that's it.
You know, so it's from it's from what's happening upstream and inland that's causing. You know, so I just
the guy that took us up there. I forget his. Do you remember his name? I forget his name, but but very, very informative chap. Dennis, that's it. Dennis, yeah. And from Shoreline Safaris, and he took us up there, and he was just explaining to us. A lot of us think that you know, it's from, I was being told it's the farms, it's the silt from the farms, it's a combination of a lot of things. So there were eucalyptus trees that were planted there. They suck 200 liters of water a day out of that water. There's not enough water coming into the system, fresh water, and the actual ocean has caused that river to be blind. So it's not just opening the mouth that's going to solve the problem. You need fresh water, and one of the...
They'd have to have a desalination
Well, that's one of the resolutions, a desalination plant in the lake. Anyway, guys, that is what's happening in St. Lucia. to everyone that put us up there this weekend.
But just a point, though. I
thank
mean,
you.
we obviously we're not knocking the whole place in that, but there's that whole debate. But aside from that, it is a beautiful
It's a
part
stunning
of the world.
place.
Yeah.
It is a
And
It's worth the visit.
It's
if
still
you
worth the
haven't
visit.
been to
Yeah,
St.
100%.
Lucia
Yeah,
or
100%.
Cape Vidal or that area, it is definitely worth a visit.
No.
Not just for the fishing, for
Yeah.
the wildlife,
Yeah.
the beaches, the
Yeah.
game parks. There's so much to do there.
Yeah.
Definitely
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah, get up there and support the guys. They're really great hosts.
All right, guys, we're going to get on to. Let's start off with Hurricane Fishing Adventures first, BK, because this is one of the things that you show on those charters, and you kind of on those adventures, you educate the guys in it. Byron's going to be taking us through Geelbeck and how to target them, the trace, what to look for on the finder, and then and also just explain to us with regards to the Hurricane Fishing Adventures.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's something. It's still in its infancy, and again, we went right back to the start. Where Kirk and I were talking about, how do we get something going where we can educate, and my side was, how do we get guys who are buying boats, jet skis, and are going in the water and then not catching fish, and then exiting the sport, so they're coming into the sport for 6 months, 8 months, and then exiting because they haven't caught fish, and it's just because people generally don't want to share their knowledge, the guys who've built their knowledge up, they've done it the hard way as well, because no one was sharing with them either. So there's a feeling that whatever I've learned, I've had a graph for, and therefore everyone else should. But I think I'm at that stage now where I'm happy to share, and give back to the sport. The sport's been very good to me, and that's really what it's about. So it's more of an educational day than a hard fishing day or just put meat on the deck day. It's not a charter. It's actually education. So we go through what equipment, how we launching, why are we doing what we're doing, how we're catching bait, how we're using the equipment on the boat, what kind of traces we're using, how we're catching bait, then what species we're targeting, why are we targeting, what time of the year, where we're going, why we're going there. So it's an information, it's more of an information clinic type than putting in. Obviously, hey, if we can catch some fish and go on the boat, that's fantastic as well. So I mean, just to run through Geelbeck Trace, I was fishing with one tonight. This is the rod I use, and it's actually mine. Mine eventually gave up after about 15 years. It's actually my dad's rod, so it's a pearl glass. It's a 250/3 blank pearl glass. Kingfisher make them up. And I like to fish lighter, so I fish with light eyes. A lot of guys will fish when they get a bottom rod, like a Geelbeck ski, it comes with heavy eyes. And I just feel it just makes the rod heavy, it slows the action down, and when you're fishing, I want to have a nice balanced rod. Now, most guys fish with a 9-inch. I normally do fish 9-inch, but I was very fortunate, a good friend of mine, Phil, bought this for my birthday. It's a cut down 10-inch. Or might even be 11-inch, but it's cut down so it doesn't have the height that it normally would come with. So it's a lighter reel. I load it with 80-pound JDB braid. I find that's a nice thin braid, and it's got a low drag in the water, so if there is current, your line's not as affected. I'll put on 38 kilo. I use Kingfisher straight leader line, 38 kilo, which is about 80 pound, and I'll wind on quite a bit of it. So I'll put on probably about 20 meters as a top shot on it. So I'll join my braid to it and wind on about 20 meters. And I just like that because it gives you some stretch, especially if you're into like a cracker or copper where you've got to put some heat on him to keep him off the bottom. If you direct on the braid, it's not leaving any margin for error. And also obviously if you've got line, also if he's going into the reef and that sort of thing, you've got a bit better chance of not getting parted off. Whereas if it's braid, I mean, it's just going to touch anything. It's so thin, it's going to come off. So I'll just take this trace off. So on my top hook, I'll show you my snooting lengths now. I'll fish with the Yamashita glow skirt, and at night I'll fish with the Nano Kendall round, which I'll offset. So I'll just take long nose pliers and I'll offset that hook slightly. I just find I get a better hook up rate than if it's just sitting dead square. My snooting for Geelbeck, just try and put this rod down so I can operate with the trace. Just So at night you'll tend to fish with a slightly longer trace because the fish will sit higher up off the bottom, especially keelback. Dargers can also move up quite a lot as well. So it's a torque trace. Fish with a crane swivel. So it's a three-way swivel, but a crane swivel. I just find that rather than a straight three-way swivel, you don't get the lines don't get twisted so much. And then my hook snoot is around about a meter. So it'll be from my shoulder here to about there, so it's about a meter long. And then you can see my snoot to my next swivel is nearly the width across my body like that. So it's probably about 1.5 meters. And then going down to the bottom hook, I'll have the skirts on the top. And then going down to the bottom hook, again, same length snooting, about a meter. And then my hook snooting, this is quite short for a night trace. You can see it's just probably about 200 mils longer, but in some cases, you can see it's quite short. I'll actually go longer like that to get it a little bit again off the bottom. So depending also if you're fishing on wrecks and that sort of thing, obviously the structure, your fish are going to be higher up around it, so you'll fish with a longer sinker to raise it up off the bottom. If there's cracker and that around, again then you'll want to fish with that slightly shorter sinker because they'll generally be near the bottom. What I'll do with dargers is if I am fishing a torque trace, normally I'll fish a sliding trace, but then what I'll do is I'll lengthen my snootings because they're a little bit more fussy, so then I'll probably go to about that length on my snooting, just make them a bit longer. And what happens with the keelback is if you make them a bit too long, then you don't feel the bite. But the darger actually wants it longer because he doesn't want to feel any pressure. So he'll come and he'll mouth the bait, and if he feels anything, he lets it go. So generally fish with a longer snooting there if I'm fishing a torque trace. What I like about fishing a torque trace, even for dargers, is that I'll fish a live bait on the bottom hook, generally, so, and even for keelback. Fish a live mackerel, obviously you've got mackerel, otherwise a mozzie. And then I'll fish either generally a sard on the top. And we know that a sard gets eaten quite quickly, but the glow skirt is there. So even if there's a bit of a head left, there's a bit of scent, the glow skirt's there. I've had often where you have a bite like a keelback and you miss him, and he comes back and then he eats the glow skirt. He'll eat the glow skirt because it still looks like there's something there. Or I'll fish a cut bait. So either mackerel or mozzie. When I say cut baits, you fillet it up both sides and then cut the backbone out. So a flapper on the top at night. But that creates scent, draws in the smaller fish, creates some activity, and then obviously you store your live bait at the bottom for when the darger comes in. A lot of times with darger is they don't actually like trying to catch the mackerel because the mackerel is quite a fast fish, and a darger is 20 kilos. It's very difficult for him to catch a bait that's this big. So you'll come in and you'll feel your mackerel vibrating, and eventually actually you'll hook up with on your other hook with a sardine head. You'll come and eat that just because you can get hold of it.
But Byron, on your live baits, you trim just to avoid that running around.
Yeah, so there's a couple of tricks on live baits, which is not, I mean, it's not that friendly, but it's not painful. So what I'll do is with the mackerel in particular, especially with dargers and with keelback as well, is you just take the scissors and just trim the tail off, not cut into the meat, but just trim the actual feather of the tail, just to slow him down a little bit, and he can still swim, but it's just that he can't move that fast, just to let the bottom fish be able to catch him. And then also on a mozzie is to fillet off the ridges on the sides, or the scoops on the side of the mozzie. That's quite hard. You take those off, and if a keelback are eating slide, they will then definitely eat that bait. I've seen someone catch 4 or 5 keelback, a couple of oaks fishing versus the one guy's not doing it, and he's not getting a bite. Same trace, same everything. So that's vital. And then just just about trying to work out the fish. So the other day, I don't know if you want to talk about it now about the copper.
Yeah, we can go to
we
that.
were fishing here. So I mean, I generally in the daytime, this is the same trace I'll fish with fishing for big fish. So you can choose. You want to fish for soldiers and that, you can fish with a 3-4 trace. Everything shortens up. Come up to like a, probably a 300 mil snoot, 3 hooks, smaller hooks, and you can fish with that. But if you're targeting keelback and cracker, dargers, any of those big type fish and coppers, this is the sort of standard trace that I'll use. Like I say, with a shortish sinker snoot to keep your bottom bait near the bottom for like cracker, rock cod, those sort of things. But what I normally do is I'll just gear down on the top hook to like a chemically sharpened hook, still quite a big hook, like a 7-0, just because it is a soldier or Scotty or something around like that, your hookup rate is better than with a 9-0 during the day. So my top hook I'll gear down slightly, still keep the Yamashita on it, and then keep the 9 on the bottom. So what was happening, we were on the one spot there, and we kept getting scaled out. So it was beautiful weather, light current, you could feel nicely, but literally the mackerel was getting stolen every down, and it didn't feel like a soldier eating it, because it wasn't that like bang, bang, bang. But every time, we had about 6-7 downs, you had to wait like 10 minutes to get the bite, but it was literally, the line was just going tight, and you were coming up, and the mackerel was gone. And I was fishing with the trace exactly like this, and we were about to pack up and go, and I said, what, this thing's puzzling me. So what I did, so if you think of the trace I've just showed you, I've actually still got the trace. So what I did was I thought, okay, maybe it is a soldier that's puzzling me. So let me change up a bit here. So what you can see here is still a 2-hook trace, but you can see the length of my snoot. So remember my normal snoot's here. So I shortened up my snoot and I geared down on my hook. So I thought, if it is a big soldier, let me go to, this is about a 6-0 hoodlum, 6 or 7-0 hoodlum. But I still want a strong hook, because if it's eating a live bait, it's a decent sized fish, so I don't want it to open up. And I think the key thing was shortening up on the snoot. So that was the trace. I kept a 2-hook trace, but it shortened up on the snoot and went down on the hook. So there it was there. And you can see there, the sinker was right by the bottom hook as well. I thought it might be a rock cod that was puzzling me out. But again, you can see the length of the hook snoot to the swivel was much shorter. And what happened was, on that down, I still stayed down for about 5 minutes, but when he came on the bite, I could feel him straight away. So he was coming and puzzling the bait, but because it was a shorter snoot now, he didn't have that time to eat the bait away and get him off the hook. I felt him straight away and went tight, and then it was a copper over 20 kilos that had been stealing mackerel for about an hour and a half. So those are just things to keep in the back of your mind. If you are continually losing live bait on that trace, just shorten up a little bit, because there's obviously a decent fish there that's, if it's eating a live mackerel.
And Brian, just sinker wise, what do you generally fishing depths?
Yeah, look, I also believe, it's almost like good fishing at the end of the day. I mean, you want to fish as finesse as you can. So you don't want to go down with a 1 kilo sinker and boom at the bottom, and the trace is just sitting there deadpan, and because what happens often is when the fish comes, he's going to swim in and pick up the hook, and he's going to move in that direction. If you got a heavy sinker, even if you're slacking away on the top and not pulling tight, he's going to feel the sinker and just drop the bait and swim away. So the lighter the sinker you can fish with, the better. So that obviously is determined by the depth of water you're in, the speed of the drift, if you're anchored, and current. So for me, I'll always try and fish the lightest sinker possible for the conditions. So start off, at a mid-range sinker. If you're anchored and there's no current, go lighter. And often you'll see that, because when you fish, when you're fishing an egg for rules comps, where you're fishing 10 kilo on the bottom, you'll end up invariably fishing with a light sinker, and then all of a sudden you're getting a lot more bite, and you're getting a lot more hookups. So it does talk to that lighter sinker, because you generally end up fishing a lighter sinker because you're fishing a 10 kilo.
And just on current, you're talking just quickly there on the anchoring side. Current, when the current's pushing and that sort of thing over a specific spot that you're fishing for, back or bottoms, where are you positioning yourself?
So you've got to look at the showing, because it's different fish sort of like different spots, you know, and it's hard to say that's where they're going to sit. But I mean, generally like pelagics, you know, they'll sit on the front of the reef if there's current, because there's an upwelling. So there's a bit
on
of
the
bait
current facing side, yeah.
Yeah, on the current facing side. No, so it's difficult to say. I mean, you really have to look for the showing. I would say doggers don't like the current that much. They will tend to stay on the back side of the drop off, slightly out of the current. Keelback are stronger swimmers. They will tend to sit more on the front side. But the main idea is to try and see where the bait is, and then look to see where the showing is. And they're almost a little bit like pelagics. They're obviously not just hard, but they'll sit also slightly off the showing, slightly off the ledge as well. So if you're fishing on a ledge, I find often you'll have the bait sitting on top of the ledge, and then maybe like 10 meters away, you'll see there's a bit of upshowing there, and that's actually the keelback sitting off the ledge. So when I anchor on a ledge, I like to just be off the ledge, slightly on the deep side. Whereas if it's a pinnacle, then it's different, because then sometimes the keelback will sit right on top of that pin. You know, you'll have the bait underneath and then the keelback sitting on top. And I mean, I've caught keelback 20 turns up. So at night, you know, everything rises at night. The bait rises. You can catch bait under the boat and the like. And keelback can come up as well. They come up, you know, like I say, 15 turns up, and I've caught them before. Yeah. Look, it's a moving target all the time. But obviously, the more you do it, and the more different things you try, you know, the more you learn in terms of what works. Yeah, but that's what works for me. So I mean, yeah, that's my standard trace. It's worked, and like I say, that's just it's not the only way to fish. But you know, again, with doggers, they can be very, very fussy, and there I'll fish a hook snoot, almost this long, and I'll fish a running trace with a sinker that long. You know, so almost a 1.8 to 2 meter sinker snoot with a running trace, with another almost 1.5 meter snoot to the hook, and that you'll be then obviously fishing a live bait. But the downside of that, as I've always said, is that then you don't have the second hook with the cut bait, you know, creating action in the water. So it's important, one guy on the boat fishing a two hook trace. I like that. One hook fishing two hook, going up and down with a sardine, cut bait every 5 minutes, and then you've got one or two of the other guys fishing with a one hook, you know, live bait. So if it draws it in, then at least he's fishing, and he's a bit sketchy, he'll come, you know, and eat that bait.
Byron, just you covered the braid and the reel there earlier, hey? and the leader.
Yeah.
The kayaks, they generally use a smaller KP.
Yeah, I think it's just for handling, and also the guys are fishing in much shallower water.
Yeah.
So the guys normally, I mean, most of the kayaks I see, they'll fish with an 8-inch KP, and you can probably, I mean, they may predominantly fishing for doggers. So the dogger's not a dirty fish. He's not trying to take in the reef or anything like that. So you know, 50-pound braid, I would say 50-pound braid, 50-pound leader. Also, you know, 10 meters of leader, 10-15 meters of leader is sufficient, and you can put plenty of pressure. You know, I fish a lot. If I'm fishing 10 kilo as well, or smaller reels, fishing on a Dorado ski. A Dorado ski is a great rod. Kingfisher make it, and it's one of the most powerful rods I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it's got a 10 kilo or 12 kilo rating, but I mean the power of that rod. I mean, we've caught 20 plus kilo. I've had youngsters on the boat fishing down the coast where it's just a backup rod, and you know, they're catching 20 kilo plus cracker, and also not handling the rod and reel that well, not being that a favorite, but still being able to, you know, manage it without popping it. So 50-pound is plenty, you know, I think, in that environment.
Yeah. All right, Byron, thanks so much on the keelback. Appreciate it, guys. Just make sure with these fish, there are limitations on what you can take out on things like dargo and copper and geelbek, and it's important that we stick to those limitations. The old adage, don't limit your catch, don't catch your limit, is specifically important on these species. And there's also some size specifications, especially on dargo, once you sort of catch your first one. So make sure you stick to these, because essentially they're all there for a reason. It's a lot of the fish that we get off our coastline are breeding stock, and they take a long time to grow. So it's important we stick to the rules on that and release where we can. And sort of target those fish and move off.
I think in the case of like the dargo, it's actually better to really take out those medium-sized fish rather than the small or big. And that's, I think, sometimes the rulings are wrong, where they have them in the States where they have size limitations. We don't have that. So I think as anglers we need to be wary of that as well.
Yeah. I think the dargo, if I'm not mistaken, reaches sexual maturity around sort of 18. Apparently, that's either the copper or the dargo, one of the two. It reaches sexual maturity quite late.
Yeah, I think it's 5 years on the dargo. From what I saw on that. The geelbek are, I think it's 18 months. So again, I speak under correction. I haven't looked for quite some time. So, but I think the geelbek, they're obviously a fast-growing fish, and that's why they shoal so heavily, especially this time of the year. So they do spawn and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I've still got my opinion on that. I still think if learn from what's worked, at the end of the day. And if you look at shad, shad has a closed season, and the shad are prolific. You can catch, you put a light on at night, and you'll catch as many shad as you want under the boat. And this is 10 kilometers out at sea, in 60 meters of water. So that's something that's worked. So I still have an opinion on closed seasons. I think the coppers have a closed season.
Yeah.
And we're catching coppers off Durban now, which we haven't caught for many years. So it works, So the jury's still out on whether just saying, well, this is your limit through the year, versus maybe up the limit out the season for when they're spawning and have the closed season, whether it's a month or 2 months. At the end of the day, if you're taking one geelbek out while it's spawning, I don't know, million, Ori can correct me, please jump on if you do, it's a million eggs, or however many hundreds of thousands of eggs that is getting taken out with one fish before it spawns. It's got a 1% survival rate. It's 1,000 fish or 10,000 fish that have just been killed. So versus someone catching 2.
Yeah.
So that doesn't, for me, it doesn't make sense. If you look at what things have worked, like for shad, and that's just my opinion, and coppers, even they take so long to sexually mature. But the reality is the MPAs are working. I think they're fantastic, and it's just also to look at those MPAs and just to continue moving forward. It's not just because you've done something and it's working that you don't have to look to change things, and have more discussions with anglers, and I'd rather get people engaged than just roll out the rules and then try and enforce them. If you've got people that are engaged, people buy into things, and I think again, like the MPAs are working, and it's like, I think we spoke about it on one of the live streams of it. It's like when you farm, you have fallow fields for a year or two, and then you replant in those fields. So again, you have an MPA that's maybe 20 or 30 k's wide. Why not shift that 2 k's that way after 2 years, and then 2 k's that way after 2 years, and allow people to fish in those areas on the edges. Those are just sort of thinking out the box. But the more you engage with people and not just cut and dry the side, it's the same as driving on the beach. Why not have 10 licenses or 20 licenses and charge the guys? Charge the guys to drive on the beach. Take the money and put it back into the research, and put it back into policing and those sort of things. You get a higher level of engagement where it's not one side versus the other side, or the greenies versus the guys who want to catch fish. So that's just again.
I think it's actually a very good point, and I think
for discussion.
It's a topic for a whole session, because I think also as anglers we also sometimes think of those Ori guys as just scientists, because a lot of them are anglers as well. So that's about it. The engagement. There's often that there's them and us instead of working
Working
together.
together, yeah. No, it's definitely a conversation that we need to have with the guys. We're going to finish off with 2 clips here quickly, guys.
But we actually need to just announce the winners from last week. We'll carry on with the clip.
Okay, so we've got our launch clip of the week sponsored by Club Marine Insurance. Make sure you guys are covered. So this is the launch at Mapelan. A lot of guys were asking on the feed last week, what is the launch like? How do you launch there? So we've got a little clip that we're going to run through with you, and you can have a look and see for yourself. We'll talk you through this launch as we go. So here we've got the drop-in. Sorry, not a very attractive shot of me behind the wheel there. But we've got the push-in here. This is basically the Mapelan Bay. You'll see as the camera turns around here. So it's nice and chilled, nice and calm in this Mapelan Bay where you dropped in. You can see there's another boat that's a nice big boat. I think that's Oki's boat that's just been dropped in there with a push pole. Now, just south of that, where you see my north of that, sorry, where you see my cursor, I think it's around there on the back of Oki's boat. Just over that, there's a pole on the actual on the bank that signals and signifies the end of the reef. So all along here, in front of us here, is all reef that runs along, and then there's a single pole that sits on the bank here that the guys have put up, that signals where that end of the reef is. So you've actually got to run through this gully here, and just be careful. At times on the low tide it gets a little bit shallow, so you've got to look for those deeper spots and position yourself correctly. And yeah, and you'll
So
see.
you're running north.
Now we're running north.
Parallel to the beach.
And that
Yes,
gully,
yes.
when you look at it from the beach, looks nice and smooth,
Yeah.
but it's not. So just
Yeah.
be careful when you're there.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple of holes in that gully, and that, as you'll see, it's best just to take it nice and easy up to these spots and see where the shallow spots are, because you have got time here in this gully, and there are spots to be able to turn around. You'll see where it starts getting shallow. You can see in front there where that I'll just scroll back here, where that breaking water is. That's all reef, where that white water is, and you'll see that there's a gap that'll open up here eventually as we go. So this is just going along the gully. We're just cruising along here now.
You're driving there.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh,
There we
my.
go, there we go. What happened? What happened? So we're just cruising on. The cameraman nearly fell off. That's why we're laughing. Not due to my driving. Just he's been on land for too long. So here we're going across the gully here, and you'll see a little bit of white water here. So it does tend to go a little bit shallow there. You've just got to watch that situation. This is also similar to a lot of the launches in Mozambique as well. It's got that sort of reef that comes up and downs like that.
Yeah, I said
Vitals
Bay,
also a little bit
it's,
like, yeah.
it's launching always sort of with the bricks on the south side, and then coming out at like a 45-degree, cutting across.
So I don't know if we'll pick up the pole on the right hand side. I don't think so. But there you can still see the reef and the waves running along here. We're just putting through the gully here now.
So Chin and Gull is also very similar to that as well, where you're running on the inside of the reef.
Okay, all right. Okay, so this is now, we're sort of in that shallower water now, and we're just coming across there. The waves aren't really breaking here. It just is a little bit of a sort of feather every now and then. You can see a bit of breaking water there. This is kind of, it looks like this is almost the end. So we start turning head on into the wave. Remember, obviously, any time that there's breaking water, you need to hit that wave head on and make sure that you're nice and straight. And now we've seen the gap here. And we're shooting out through the launcher now. So there we go. That's the end of the reef on the right hand side there. You can see it's nice and flat and flattened out. A little bit of a peak here, but yeah, relatively easy launch when there's not a sort of east that it's just that's just been blowing and it messes it up. This was after a southwest that had cleaned the swell up a bit.
On Oki's boat, you don't have to worry about.
Yeah, no, Oki's boat you just plow through that thing. Yeah. But that's that was the launch from Mapelan. So hope you guys learned a little bit from that. The kayaks would do the same thing. They'd follow that line, and then they'd look for that gap and that shoulder that's ending off of the reef, and you would sort of launch to the north of that. Guys, next week we're going to be live streaming off of a yacht, and it's the same yacht that we use up in Lazarus. We're going to try and see if the guys we can maybe live stream
tuna, and then we're going to eat it.
Tuna. we're gonna try to see if the guys can maybe let us have a fish on it beforehand, before our live stream. So we'll live stream that as well. Really, thanks so much for having us.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, fantastic.
And thanks very much.
Thanks, Kirk.
Guys, for all your
Byron.
Just quickly,
Thanks for taking me off the fish as well.
pleasure.
Sorry
Last
about
week's
that.
winners, we didn't announce them because there's always a bit of a delay. And the first question was, where were we live streaming from? A couple of smart asses here under the lapa by the pool, Conor Roebuck. But the first one looks like it was Bernie Blichnout.
Bernie Blichnout.
So Bernie will PM you there and send you your prize. And then for the lure, the first guess, Conor Roebuck again, because you're sitting there watching
under
us.
the lapa, and there's a delay.
But
So he
he's
answers first and then-
disqualified.
he's
And Hanno Turnison got it first. That's Oki's son.
I know, well done, but well done. And guys, have a look at this bit on Lazarus now that the borders have officially opened up from the 1st of October. We're going to be heading back up to Mozambique. Our charter operations are going to be heading back up there to fish areas like Primarias and Lazarus Banks. If you're interested, get a hold of us, get in touch with Go Fish Magazine, myself or Brendan, and have a look at this Lazarus promo to get those juices flowing, guys. We are out for tonight. Enjoy the video. Thanks very much to Natal Powerboats for having us. For your
Thanks for the
boating
support.
needs, make sure that you get on here to Natal Powerboats, and they'll look after you for any flat water or out saltwater application. So, guys, thanks very much for watching. Have a check out of this Lazarus promo, and we are out for the week. Need sound there, Cam? Good.